Campaign Council. Governor, welcome to the program.
Thank you for being here.
Asante sana, together with Governor Nderitu Mureithi, the chair of the Raila Odinga Campaign Board. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you.
Now, getting straight into it, we first want to understand from you, and if you could make this an elevator pitch. If you were to tell Kenyans in 1 minute what separates your respective campaigns, how do you describe them? And Governor Nderitu, let me start with you on that. What separates your campaign from their campaign?
Well, but to begin with, of course, we have by far the better candidate in terms of trust and character and experience, and what the campaign then offers for the future of Kenya. And that is jobs, better healthcare, that is enhancement of political space and freedoms, a better implementation of the Constitution, and therefore fulfillment of our dream, our common dream as Kenya, which is Vision 2030, for the country to be middle income, industrializing country with a high quality of life. And just to be clear, middle income is about $15,000 per person per year, which would work out to 125,000 shillings per person per month. And that is a trajectory that Kenya has been on for the last 15 years, and we expect that indeed by 2030 we'll have reached that goal. Thank you.
Governor Nok, he's not beaten around the bush. What separates your campaign from his? He says better candidate. What's your take?
Thank you. I think for the first time we are offering a candidate, William Ruto, whom the UDA party nominated last week on the 15th, as the newcomer onto the presidential contention. He's a candidate with a very long experience, having served various administrations, various portfolios, have seen the good and bad, and is now able to launch himself and provide the leadership that is required. But again, he has a plan, and that plan has been articulated very well. It continues to be articulated, a bottom-up plan. It is people-centered. It is being informed by people in various public gatherings in counties, by various economic sectors, to inform priorities in the counties that his government is going to be focusing on. And on top of that, charters will be signed between the party, between William Ruto and all the candidates for UDA to commit to implement those priority programs across the country. That this plan looks at and is based on agricultural-led economic growth that is based on equity, that is based on enterprise, that is based on growing the competitiveness of our agricultural sector, because you know very well agricultural sector, 70% of the population depends on it. Mm-hmm. And we will have to look at it to be able to get out of the current problems we are experiencing. Very high unemployment, 1.7 million people out there without a job. Institutions of learning are churning out 800,000 young people out in the market, and only about 200,000 are being accommodated in both the formal and the informal sector. And the second pillar of that bottom-up is on businesses. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You very well know...
Keep it brief, please. Go ahead. 65%
of the Kenyan economy is reliant on small, micro and small institutions. Mm-hmm. And this is the focus. If we want to grow the economy, we've got to pump money inside. Government has to deliberately provide resources so that you invigorate the economy, you create demand, and you create demand for medium and larger industry. And in that way, you will be addressing issues of employment, you will be addressing issues of revenue, increasing revenue base, you will be minimizing the pressures that the few taxpayers are paying by lowering the taxes. Okay. So that is the focus of bottom-up.
That's what separates your campaign from...
In addition to this...
Okay, and I'll give you a chance to... We are going deeper into the economy discussion. I don't want you to finish all your points in your opening statement, Governor Nanok, and for you fellow viewers watching, those are the opening statements from both sides. For purposes of this discussion, we could say Azimio, Kenya Kwanza. But before we get deeper into the economy discussion, we want to understand, you sit here not just as campaign chiefs, as county chiefs as well, with your own political history. And we want to understand how you got to the positions you sit in right now. Let me start with you, Governor Mureithi. Before this, we did not know that you had close working relations with the ODM leader, Raila Odinga. Maybe help Kenyans understand, where do you fit with Honorable Raila Odinga, that he chose you as the chair, a very weighty position of his campaign board?
Well, I think they say that you will understand the character of a person by the friends they keep. I come to the table with, a serving governor of Laikipia, a high-performing serving governor of Laikipia. I come to the table having served in the 10th Parliament as an MP and assistant minister. I come to the table with 10 years global experience out of IFC and World Bank, having worked on 4 different continents. I come to the table as an expert in finance and economics, not just in my country, but globally, with a strong CV on actually what it takes to create jobs, so that we're not guessing and throwing choice slogans at ourselves, but as an expert who can with demonstrated data and experience on creating jobs. Of course, I've worked with the candidate in the 10th Parliament and in between, as well as now serving governor. And therefore, if you look at our relationship in the days of the National Economic and Social Council, when things were actually looking up in terms of expanding this economy and so on. So I also come to it, with a high reputation for integrity and fulfilling the promises that I've made to citizens in Laikipia and demonstrated experience. And I think that that's what brings me to the table.
Governor, some would say that it also helps when your chief campaigner comes from the Mount Kenya region, a vote-rich area that everyone is very interested in.
Yeah, that may very well be the case, but Laikipia is actually in the Rift Valley. As I think we were saying on the comments off camera, Laikipia the size of Central Province, or what used to be called Central Province. Laikipia is home to 34 of Kenya's ethnicities. 34. So it is truly the face of Kenya and what Kenya should aspire to be in terms of Kenyans living together, working together, and not having to fight. Okay.
And Governor Noka, I want to hear the same from you because, some of your supporters who may have left the country 5 years ago and come back today will be surprised. They knew you as a staunch ally of Raila Odinga, and now here you are leading the campaign on the other side. How did this happen?
Thank you. Thank you, Waiga. I actually joined politics in 2007. I used to work for international organizations, the UN, and a couple of NGOs for 15 years. And my entry into politics was when ODM was being formed. And I stuck with ODM for quite a while when I was a member of parliament in the 10th Parliament. And also I became an assistant minister, but also for the 2 terms that I was elected as the governor of Turkana. People had confidence in me to elect me for that period. But however, immediately after 2017, I had issues, interest issues that revolved around the promises we had made for the people of Turkana, and which were never fulfilled. Including even promises of nominating an MCA to represent the minority communities in Turkana that went into a different county. And I think all those are concerns, including also the boycotts that happened after 2017 election. I'm one of the counties that said we will not go into boycott. And so we regained together with William Ruto, because we remember very well 2007, William Ruto served as a member of parliament for ODM before he exited. And our meeting was because I come from very humble background. Governor Nderito, we were brought up together. Our fathers happened to have farms next to each other. And he knows very well that I am from very, very humble beginnings. I struggled through my education. I literally, for certain times when we are on holiday, worked in people's farms to be able to pay for my fare back to school. So I have gone through that process. So when William Ruto began talking about the bottom-up, lifting the bottom, this gave me the opportunity that this is where I belong, and I should be able to deploy the experiences that I've acquired working in the country, working into Turkana, to make sure that this is a reality, that we are indeed exploiting and making sure that the potential of 45 million Kenyans is fully exploited, and the economic growth grows across the country. And inclusivity, the issues of inclusivity also attracted me. And this is the reason why, when I was asked by William Ruto and the rest of the team that is working with him to lead his presidential campaign, I did not look back. And I said, this is the opportunity to show that those from marginalized and pastoral communities can be able to provide leadership. And don't forget that I was the third chair of the Council of Governors.
That's correct.
Elected popularly by all the rest of the governors. And I served with distinction. And you remember very well, we had major conflicts during the first term of Jubilee administration between the county governments and the national government. And I was able to bring a rapport and to bring tensions that were existing to a level that was that brought everybody to the table to discuss issues.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much for that. I want us to dive into the state of the race, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And maybe we start with the ugly on this one. In democracies, mutual respect is part of the game. And we're not seeing a lot of that right now between your respective camps, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. And I'll give you specifics. For you, Kenya Kwanza, you don't call the presidential candidate on the other side by name. You call him Mzee wa Kitendawili. And for you, on the Azimio side, many times you refer to the deputy president as Yule Mwizi. What does this say about the state of civility in our campaigns so far, led by your respective sides? Governor Ruto, let me start with you.
Well, first and foremost, you're quite right that for democracy to thrive, you need to accept that your neighbor or even your brother may have a view different from yours. And we truly come to this campaign with the idea that let us, or with the temperament that let us debate ideas about how to create jobs. For example, ourselves, we have a target of 5 million jobs. The question is, how are those jobs to be created? We come to the table, or to this debate, talking about a fuller implementation of the Constitution, better support for devolution. It is, of course, it has happened that in an occasion or two, that perhaps members of our team may have used words that are not as charitable to the other side. I think
an occasion or two is putting it lightly, Governor.
Yeah, well, I can only say that I'm aware of an occasion or two where even I have felt that perhaps the choice of word is less than charitable from a member, say, of our team in terms of describing members of the opposing team. This campaign really is about jobs, is about incomes, and who has the better idea, who has the better experience, who can be trusted to, in fact, create jobs and increase the incomes, who can be trusted to continue with the trajectory of social protection, who can be trusted to ensure better health care for all of us. And again, I want to re-emphasize, in democracy, really the fundamental cardinal principle is that your neighbor truly will have a view different from yours. But that is what democracy is. It is for you to persuade your neighbor, or for your neighbor to persuade you. Now, some guys, honestly, some guys argue as though they're about to leave Kenya and go to some other place. We as Azimio, we are here to build Kenya and to ensure that we realize Vision 2030 together, to be a middle-income, industrializing country, with a high quality, democratic, with a high quality of life. And that is our target we set ourselves as a team, including, as a team. If you go back in 2006, 2007, 2008, and that is a trajectory. And we are really very close to realizing the dream for Kenya, but the person and the team to get us there, to cross the Rubicon, the person is Raila Odinga and the team is Azimio.
Governor, we can disagree, but civility, surely, the terms that are being bandied around, I don't think you'd see that in other democracies.
You know, Wahiga, I want to stick to what Kenyans, ordinary Kenyans want, who are the majority. Credible studies have indicated that the biggest challenge to Kenyans now is the cost of living. The cost of food is very high.
I want to ask you to answer my question first.
There.
We are getting to that.
Yeah.
But the quality of our politics, Governor, does that concern you?
You know, I wanted to follow up to the answers you asked him,
yes,
so that I can also answer it. I was just giving a precursor to,
briefly
then. And I said, the challenges facing Kenyans now is the cost of living, the low productivity of their farms, the problems they are facing in the business sector, including the credit problems, and then the debt burden that is holding the country. And I think those challenges that Kenyans are facing every day, and unemployment that is facing 1.7 million Kenyans, those are the challenges that any serious presidential contender and any serious contender for any elective seat should be looking at answers. So when we describe our opponent, when we describe the Azimio candidate as Kitendawili, it's because his focus is much more on telling stories that you cannot hold him accountable to.
So you have no regrets about using that term?
No, that you hold him, you cannot hold him. We have no regret because he's telling stories that you can't get accountable to. Because when you discuss issues like very broader issues, very broader issues, it is so difficult to account. When you say Mandela moment, how do you account to the people in Laikipia, to the people in Turkana, to a Mandela moment? And I think this is the reason why we're describing as a guy who's just giving Kitendawili, making people laugh, but not actually addressing the critical issues that people want, and which William Ruto is addressing, and he's been speaking and articulating about them all the time. And this is going to be his focus moving forward in this particular campaign, and pointing out the weaknesses of his, of his competitors.
Governor Nderitu, do you have a response to that?
I have a response, and in most of my public statements, I have made it clear across board that, frankly, however good you are at throwing certain choice words at your opponent, and I can tell you, whether you are Azimio or you are something else, even if you become the Olympic champion of throwing insults, it does not add one job to Kenyans. Even if you are the All-Africa Games champion of insults, it does not increase the quality, it does not improve the quality of life of Kenyans, it does not increase incomes of Kenyans one iota. My plea to political actors across board is that why can't we debate ideas?
Yeah.
Let us debate ideas. Who has the better plan for how to create jobs here in this great republic? Why can't we debate ideas? Who has the better plan for ensuring that all Kenyans have a better quality of life, have a better healthcare that is working for them? Who has a better idea of protecting the nearly 1.7 million households who live in abject poverty? Who has a better idea for actually how to improve productivity in agriculture? And that team is Azimio, and the candidate is Raila, and I hope we get into the detail so we can lay them bare for all Kenyans.
Do you tell those in your camp that can we keep the focus on this instead of constantly...
Absolutely. And I would challenge my opponent and everybody to review footage of Nderitu Muriithi speaking in most political rallies, and that is the refrain that I put out to everybody. My brother here has said he has no regrets that people are using unparliamentary language. I think that is really...
I didn't say that.
I would not wish that.
I didn't say that. Those are your words.
My colleague here also said
those are your words.
That he made two contradictory statements. He says, look, we grew up side by side, which is true, that our dads actually had chambers next to one another out in Laikipia, okay? And then he says, but you know, we need to stick...
You haven't finished your statement. He says...
He says, and I quote, that he came from a very humble background.
Yeah.
Okay. Yet he's also telling you that his dad's shamba and my dad's shamba, yeah, are next to one another. Now, peel that onion a little bit more.
Okay.
But I would like us, Wahiga, to get into the content, and if you allow me, I can dive right into it.
Okay, let me allow him to respond, then we get into that.
You know, what you have in front of you is a representation of a dynasty and a hustler. And indeed I am, because I know very well that the late Yusuf Haji and Honorable Machogu, who is a candidate now, a UDA candidate for governor in Kisii, paid my school fees. Helped my father pay my school fees because my father was a driver to them when they were there, DC Nyandarua. Away from that, I don't want to focus on myself. I want to focus on the candidates that are on the race. And this is the people we are representing here. What is the focus? Trust issues which he has raised. And it is critical when we are going into election, because if you look at our history, the previous elections from 2007, we've had issues with those elections, particularly around tensions, around violence, around boycotts. Those are the critical issues that we're going to be facing also on this election. Who can you trust to accept the election results? Who can you trust to not cause violence? Who can you trust to not cause economic boycotts? We've had those problems before. William Ruto has not been engaged on that. He has publicly stated he will accept the results of this election, and he will ensure the team from Kenya Kwanza that he will be with in the election are not going to be violent, and they are not going to exercise acts that are going to create tensions across the country. And really, that is where that candidate is completely different with the Azimio candidate, because he has said if. He has not accepted to accept the election results. He has said if. And if stands for so many things. So, and I think until he comes out publicly that he will commit to it, that we will all support the IEBC to oversee the elections, to provide its support so that credible elections are conducted, to ensure that we all work bipartisan, to ensure that the IEBC gets all the sufficient funds is required. And then, of course, expected to do a proper, credible election, and then commit to it so that we assure Kenyans that we are indeed committed to an economic revolution. You remember very well, William Ruto was the first to convert the Kenyan politics from the politics of ethnicity, the politics of positions, to the politics of the economy. And I think you have to give it to that man. You have to give it to the entire Kenya Kwanza team for moving the debate on this year's election towards the economy. So and we provide that leadership.
What you're telling Governor Ruto is you set the pace, they are following, is that?
We have set the pace, they're copying.
They're copying?
Because they have no other alternative to
Governor Ruto,
follow.
As you talk about the economy, start from this point. What is the biggest undoing of governance that has affected our economy today? If you ask Kenyans, opinion polls show that their biggest concern is unemployment and cost of living and corruption as well. What caused that? What has led us to this point?
Firstly, let me start off by just disabusing my colleague here.
Proceed.
1997, Kibaki's campaign is on the economy. As a matter of fact, is on a question of whether we can create 500,000 jobs per year. 2002, the NARC revolution is on the economy. And we actually moved real incomes from 7,000 shillings per person per month to 33,000 shillings per person per month. It has always been about economy. But what is it, from a governance point of view, that makes the challenges facing Kenyans worse? It is corruption. Now, let's take the cost of energy. The cost of energy, electricity, we are paying very high bills. Small manufacturers pay maybe 4 times what their colleagues are paying, their competitors in India and China. Why? Because of deals that were less than kosher in the past. In the immediate history of Kenya, the president had to make dramatic changes to the leadership of the energy ministry in order to deal with this exact question. So corruption and poor governance are the center of why the cost of living is high. Let me repeat. Corruption and poor governance are, in fact, at the center of why the cost of living is high. Now, my candidate starts off, first of all, by making a firm commitment, a clear commitment to tackling corruption head-on. And again, look, and I don't want to cast aspersions here, but frankly, sometimes, if you got in a bus, and you found that half the people on that bus had cases in court, you might begin to ask, am I in the right bus or not? Now, our colleagues, the truth of the matter is that many of leaders in that team have one case or another relating to governance and corruption. And I'm not saying they are guilty. I'm just saying they have all these cases. How come all the people with cases are on that side and all the people without cases are on the Azimio side? So corruption. But let us go deeper into a couple of questions here. How do you grow agriculture? The smallholder agriculture requires, frankly, two things to be able to grow her productivity from where it is today to a higher level. Number one, machines and tools. Okay? Number two, access to irrigation. Now, the difference between what our competitors are saying and ourselves is this. We know that. That's why we are focused on manufacturing, because unless we make the machines and tools that the farmer needs in order to increase her productivity, we can throw all the slogans we want. It is not going to happen. I would challenge my colleague here to show us one economy in the world that was able to become middle income, that was able to grow the productivity of agriculture without manufacturing. Just one.
Let him respond. The challenge is to you, Governor Nanok.
Thank you. I think he went into the second phase of issues which we are not asked. But let me first begin from your immediate question. You know, I am surprised my colleague and my friend is an economist, but he's not addressing the real issues of why we are where we are. Essentially, I can tell you for the last 9 years, the bigger focus for government has been on infrastructure, physical infrastructure. And this is where a lot of resources have gone into, to the expense of productivity. We've invested very little money on production, particularly on agricultural production. You know very well that the Big Four had one of the pillars was on agricultural production. That didn't take off as was expected. And this is a problem because we have huge infrastructure. You have a very huge railway, which we have very little to move on, to even export. So I think those are the challenges. And then, of course, we have always been a food deficit country. And because of our productivity is very low, the amount of deliberate support that is being provided to farmers is not sufficient for us to be able to meet our food needs. Yet, that potential exists. And of course, I totally agree. The issues of corruption and governance as an issue, they are a critical issue. And you've heard William Ruto addressing and saying he will address it. And he has given a deliberate point of how he'll address it. Because the Constitution provides independent institutions that are supposed to address issues of corruption. You have the judiciary. The judiciary has been struggling. It has been struggling with fewer judges. It has been struggling with no funds because the judicial fund has never been operationalized. How do you expect it to dispense justice? Both issues on corruption and all the others.
Who was supposed to operationalize the judiciary fund?
The government of the day is supposed to be operationalizing the judiciary fund. Second issue, and you talked about...
I thought you were going to get deeper into...
No, I wanted to tell you...
President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto.
I wanted to tell you the issues around governance and corruption. Second issue is also the independence of the independent institutions like EACC and the security institutions. that is supposed to be dealing with this. I think you know very well those institutions are being politically led and managed. If these institutions are led to have their own independence, all the issues of suspected corruption who are across the political structure, whether in Azimio, whether in Kenya Kwanza, they're there. But give those political institutions the latitude to do their job, give them funds that they can account for, that they can manage on their own, and that will give us a way out of issues of addressing corruption.
Tell me this, Governor Nok, because I want you to respond to this as he also responds to this.
Let me mention one more.
How much responsibility does your candidate or your aspirant bear for the state that we find ourselves in today as a country?
From what I know, my candidate is a deputy president of Kenya. He's a principal assistant to the president, and he is assigned duties to do.
So no responsibility?
The president assigns him to do. From what I know and what is in the public domain, he's been active during the first term. He's played a lot on delegated responsibilities, particularly on overseeing a number of development programs that have been implemented. And of course, in the second term, you know very well, he has played a less and less role because nothing, if any, has been delegated to him.
And I'm coming to the second term shortly with Governor Ruto. But when he tells, I think it was KEPSA, that, you know, the electricity rollout in the country, it was planned in my living room. You know, this project, I sat with the minister. Those were my projects. Can you really say he just sat down and was waited for duties to be delegated to him? He sounded like a man who was fully in control of certain dockets and surely must bear some responsibility for the state that we find ourselves in as a country.
He has accounted and has been open to the assignments that he was given. He's done it. He's taken full responsibility for those assignments.
So he bears some responsibility?
He has taken full responsibility for the assignments that were assigned to him.
And Governor Ruto, for you, the biggest accusation from Kenya Kwanza is that from 2018, the authority, access to government now fell on your candidate, Honorable Raila Odinga. How much responsibility would you then say he bears for the state the country finds itself in today, whether he's in government formally or informally?
As I answer your question, on the issue of tackling corruption, our opponent's chief economic strategist has been on record saying tackling corruption is not their priority. Yeah? That is in public domain. So they are speaking from both sides of their mouth. I mean, they need to take a stand. Are they going to fight corruption or not? But without a doubt, their chief economic strategist has said that corruption is not a priority.
William Ruto has taken a stand.
In their. Do we have fewer judges? Nothing could be further from the truth. 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, we had a total of 36 judges in the country. By my last count, that number is well above 200 judges. And, of course, if you go to the magistracy, the same. So, as I personally have been on record saying, it's okay to criticize, but it is better to criticize with data, because then at least you can look a bit informed instead of just throwing words on the. Whose responsibility is it, or was it, still is, to operationalize the judiciary fund and the other things that our colleague is saying were not operationalized? My view, and I think that is the view of the majority of Kenyans, the deputy president, first of all, is a constitutional office, elected. And that is why, actually, even if you quarrel with him, you can't sack him. Okay? Now, for the deputy president to say he was sidelined, if he was sidelined, he had an option, for example, to resign. Because not to do so, then, is to perpetuate a fraud. Because you're being paid with public money. They have just undertaken a foreign trip to the UK and to America, costing well in excess of 110 million shillings at the expense of the taxpayer. I mean, how more fraudulent and deceitful can you get? On the one hand, you wake up every day and you say, I have no responsibility here. Then on the other, you pick up 110 million of Kenya taxpayers' money and you go to the UK and to the US to do what then, if you have no responsibility? Look, We can give you many, many instances.
I hope you're getting to talk about your own candidate.
And I'm going there right now.
You're going there,
now,
okay.
I want to give you just one incident that shows the pattern of behavior. Our opponents are now saying they are willing to increase the resources to devolution from the constitutional 15% to 35%. The organ that determines or negotiates the division of revenue is the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council.
I beg.
Chaired, you guess, I'm sure you have guessed it, by the Deputy President. So at every turn, he has opportunity to prove what he is saying is true. In this year's negotiation, and I was there as the chair of finance for Council of Governors, he told us a big fat, no way you're going to get a penny more. So it is a bit disingenuous now to go out and claim differently. As to what role has my candidate played?
Because
my candidate, my aspirant...
You've talked about energy, corruption, and you've mentioned two issues within the energy sector that has had sort of a spillover effect on the economy as a whole.
Indeed.
Your aspirant has had access to government, has been called the brother of His Excellency the President. What has he done so far, even with that unofficial influence, to address all these issues?
I have a right to respond to the allegations that is raised.
I'll give you a chance.
I think give us balance time.
I gave you two questions, Governor, so I also deserve to give him two questions.
Yes.
I did that.
And my answer is this.
Yes.
My candidate, my aspirant, is the, I would say, unofficial leader of the opposition. He is the leader of the ODM party, okay? But remember that the position of leader of opposition, okay, is no longer, once we went to a presidential system, that position is no longer there formally. Now, so Raila Odinga, in the last 9 years, has led the opposition, actually from an unofficial legal capacity. Now, the fact that Raila Odinga stepped forward after very heated political competition and chose the statesman's route of saying, look, President Uhuru, this country is divided straight down the middle. Let us cross ranks as political leaders and provide direction to Kenya. And that is what the handshake was. And you can see the results of it.
Okay.
Now, I know it is convenient for our competitors to try and lay blame on the former Prime Minister. It is convenient, but it is not the truth, and they know it, Kenyans know it, and I honestly think they should get on with a different line of attack.
Governor, no, go ahead.
Thank you, Wahiga. I think, you know, you've got to ask, do we have constitutional oversight over government? Yes or no? As it stays now, we have no opposition, because the party that was meant to be the opposition has actually joined government. And this is the reason why you find in Parliament some of the committees that are supposed to be filled up by government parliamentarians are being occupied by the opposition parliamentarians, like the Finance Committee is being occupied by opposition MP. So it's basically oversight has been killed. In fact, those issues that we knew, I mean, the man we are seeing, the Azimio candidate, is not the man we knew before. It's a completely different man, because he used to challenge issues like Eurobond. He used to challenge issues like Pandora when they were coming. I remember very well last week when that particular question was put to him in Chatham House, and we were listening. He fumbled. He did not respond to it. That he was being asked how he will deal with it, yet he's been an advocate of anti-corruption, how he will deal with these issues when he becomes president. He fumbled. So, I mean, that shows you an element of non-committal. Then the other thing is a fact that even the Constitution, even the judicial rulings, the executive has been ignoring some of the judicial rulings. The leader of opposition has not commented, meaning he may have been agreeing with them. So it is difficult to trust Raila, who will implement the Constitution moving forward. You can't trust him to implement that Constitution, which he participated in creating. I mean, we fear that that Constitution is going to be dismembered. We've seen it in the proposals in BBI, where 72 articles were being changed. And again on the judiciary, because my colleague has said that I have no facts. Does he know that to finalize corruption cases and all the other business cases that are brought before the judiciary takes more than 5 years, sometimes 10 years, sometimes 20 years? Why is that so? It's lack of resources, personnel and money. And I think that is a critical area. We must provide support to the judiciary to be able to expand justice in the very shortest time possible.
Gentlemen, I think I need to take a break because I want to come back and read so much feedback. I don't know if I'll be able to get through all of it, and then come back to you. Both of you proposing economic models for your camps, and some are asking, are those economic models working in their counties as we speak? You don't just sit here as campaigners. You're running your own countries, so to speak, and Kenyans want to know that. They also want to know so many other things as well that I'll be getting to in just a bit. But I'm told let's look at some feedback shortly before we take that break. Are we going to put them up on the screen? Okay, let's take a few thoughts from Kenyans. We'll take a break after that, then come back. Wanauni Michael, you say, ask the panelists how they're intending to uplift the lives of many youth who are jobless and have degrees. Can we continue clapping for their bosses as usual to make them ascend to power and we are forgotten? Okay, Wanauni Michael, that's your question. So it's about jobs. Brian Mugendi, ask Governor Nanok what makes him and his Kenya Kwanza brigade to think they'll win the elections with only Mount Kenya votes. They seem to have invested so much of their energy and resources in that particular area, more than any other parts of the country. All right, that's from Brian Mugendi. Let's see what else we have, and I'll be reading your SMSs as well. This is Ngusale. Please ask the two representatives of Azimio la Umoja and Kenya Kwanza, where can I get the written manifestos of Raila Odinga and William Ruto so I can review the promises and the political strategy of both candidates? Okay, those are very good questions, viewers watching this evening. Ernest Mogire asked Nderito Moreithi, how does Azimio intend to merge the individual party manifestos for 26 political parties? What will that final manifesto look like, is what Ernesto wants to know. Okello Mwalimu is asking, which version of Josphat Nanok should we trust? The one who campaigned for Raila in 2007, 2013, 2017, or the one who heads Ruto's campaign team? Is he a man on a mission or simply biting the same hands that once fed him? All right, let's take one more, get a response from each, then we'll take that break after that. Let me be one or two. No name here, but to say, ask Governor Nanok, what specifically has he done as governor in terms of bottom-up in Turkana? And let's take one more. Let's put that up on the screen. Oh, we're getting to SMSs. Okay. Thuranira Kagweria is asking, it's an election year. Governor Nderito, whom I respect so much, has a golden moment now that he's at the height of managing the campaign team of Raila Odinga. The healthcare situation in his county is dire. Okay, let's go to the second part of the question. The population in Laikipia County is disadvantaged now that his government fired healthcare workers in 2018. The Public Service Commission and courts have pronounced themselves on the issue. It is time, bygones be bygones. Kindly reinstate the healthcare workers as a sign of leadership by respecting court orders. Those are many questions, gentlemen. I'll give you a minute each to respond to what you feel is the most pertinent one. We take a break, we'll come back, and you have a bit more time. Governor Nderito, I think let me start with you. And you asked about your county.
Healthcare, yes.
You want to start there?
Thuranira is, of course, representing a union. It is true, I sacked people who refused to work in 2018. It's a finished case. The healthcare system, the Laikipia Healthcare Service, has no equal. The Laikipia Healthcare Service...
Did you follow the court orders?
Has no equals. Yes, we did follow the court orders.
Reinstate, I believe there was...
No, there was no court order for reinstatement. There was no public service order for reinstatement. What all courts, as they should, say is that due process must be followed. And those people who respected court orders and went back to work, got their jobs back. Those who did not were sacked, and all there is to it. I can tell you the healthcare system in Laikipia, the Laikipia Healthcare Service, one service with 87 facilities with the most innovative things like sample referral, and I really just want to ask my colleagues in the unions, just give it up. It is 4 years down the line, there is nothing to renegotiate or revisit. It is a done matter, and let us move on. What are we doing ourselves in our own counties?
30 seconds, go ahead.
We were asked in terms of creating jobs. Michael, look at the Laikipia County Statistical Abstract. We have created in excess of 23,000 jobs by supporting small and medium enterprises with the economic stimulus, and we can go into detail if the time allows.
Okay, we'll come back after the break and get that detail. Governor Nanok, bottom up in Turkana County, and by the way, today is World Water Day. Again, is there progress in your county? Is what a viewer wants to know.
You know, Wahiga in 2013, we began from the very, very bottom in terms of development. That was a marginal area. But we've done sufficient, particularly on consultations with communities at the lowest level. When I began, we began consultations and developing development plans at the ward level and allocating resources at the ward level. And allocating support even to the youth, to students at the ward level. This is what has lifted the 30 wards in Turkana. And you'll have to realize also that very late and even now, I will be next week distributing 186 million shillings to support small and micro businesses, 3,000 of them, selected and through a competitive criteria by a board we set up. And these loans will be around 20,000 to 100,000 to 200,000 maximum. This is for very, very, very small mamambogas and all the others, and at 3% interest. This is our trial for the bottom up to be able to invigorate the economy of Turkana, which is reliant.
A bit late for a few months.
And then on top of that, we are also partnering with other institutions like IFC to provide what we call a Kakuma Challenge Fund, a 2.5 billion shilling fund that supports middle and large enterprises across that is host Turkana communities and refugees. And this is a program that we will want to collaborate so that government focuses on a part of supporting enterprise, but also partners contribute towards growing those enterprises to meaningful players in the industry and contributors to the growth of our economy.
Okay. Gentlemen.
Consider this. 183 million for Turkana County versus 3.3 billion economic stimulus for Laikipia County. Government-led versus market-led. The economic stimulus in Laikipia is not based on government, the way my brother is saying, at going to give. It is market-based, working with the leading banks of Kenya, providing 3.3 billion shillings to micro and small businesses at 7.5%. You had your say.
Small
at 7.5%.
And your businesses are struggling.
And get this.
I need to take
get
that
this. 55% of the borrowers are borrowing 100,000 shillings or less. So just look at the numbers and tell us who really can be trusted to do it nationally.
Do you have one line before I take that break?
Let me tell you, the economy of Laikipia has been built over years. It is not marginalized. I think the only section of area that is marginalized is a very small percentage. Turkana is 8 times Laikipia. It is 13% of the country. So we've got various challenges, and we have to begin somewhere. We will be scaling that next year to probably 2-3 times. And much more.
My budget
we'll be allocating more resources.
My budget is 6 billion. His budget is 14 billion.
Well,
let's take a break.
It's always good.
No, you have to realize we have so many challenges in water, in drought, in agriculture. We have so many challenges we're dealing in health. Much more complex than what he is experiencing.
Okay.
I think he is lucky that he has an advanced economy that has been reliant. And of course, his uncle used to be the president.
Wow.
So Laikipia has been a big beneficiary.
Oh, that's a Governor Nanoka's personal now.
No, but we'll come back to it.
We'll come back. Let's take that break. My goodness. When politicians talk numbers and development, it is a refreshing conversation, and I think I'm really enjoying a very mature discussion here in studio. When we come back, we'll look at a bit more of your feedback. I've got a few more questions for them as well. What do they think about the role of President Uhuru Kenyatta in the campaigns this time round? And also queries of rigging. We had one of the candidates out there abroad talking about concerns about the August 9th election. We'll talk a bit about that when we come back. So stay with us. We'll be right back. See you on the other side.